Mazda has a secret. Actually several. They are all sitting on used car lots right now, completely ignored, priced like last year's phone, while buyers walk straight past them towards something newer with twice the problems. These cars are not obscure or broken. They are just boring to everyone who has not done the math. The math says 300,000 miles on basic maintenance while cars costing twice as much are already at the shop. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Let's go. Number 5. 2001 to 2008 Mazda B Series B3000. Yes, it is a Ford Ranger with a Mazda badge. No, that is not an insult. That is the entire point. The Mazda B3000 shares its platform, its engine, and its DNA with one of the most mechanically over-engineered small trucks Ford ever built. The 3.0-liter Vulcan V6 under the bonnet produces 154 horsepower at 5,000 revolutions per minute and 180 pound-feet of torque at 3,000 revolutions per minute. It is a pushrod V6 with an overhead valve design that was already decades old when it went into these trucks, which means every failure mode it ever had was identified, patched, and documented before your example rolled off the line. The Vulcan's timing is handled by a chain, not a belt. There is no scheduled replacement interval, no catastrophic engine death from a missed service, just a chain that runs until something else on the truck gives up first, which at this mileage is almost always cosmetics, not mechanicals. The reason this truck costs almost nothing is the badge. Mazda stopped selling the Patchland B Series in the United States in 2009. Ranger buyers know what a Ranger is worth. B Series buyers assume something obscure must be wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with it. It is a Ranger. You are just buying the version with fewer people competing for it. Practical cab-forward seating, a four-wheel drive option on most trims, and a bed that fits actual things make this the most genuinely useful vehicle on this list. Parts availability is total. Every Ford Ranger part fits. Every independent mechanic knows this engine in their sleep. Service history matters more than mileage on the B Series. The Vulcan V6 does not care about numbers on the odometer. It cares about oil quality and change frequency. A truck with 150,000 documented miles is a safer buy than an undocumented example at 80,000. The service records tell you how seriously the previous owner took the vehicle. On a truck this mechanically robust, that attitude difference is the only variable that matters. The 5-speed automatic on 2001 and newer B3000 models is Ford's 5-Chua R44E unit. This Torque torque converter automatic is a proven workhorse. Current pricing: $2,500 to $6,000 depending on mileage, condition, and whether the seller knows what they have. Extended cab examples at the lower end of that range are a specific kind of value that does not come along often. This is the pick when you need a truck that actually works, has zero pretension, and will be running long after the person who laughed at it has replaced their timing chain twice. One final buying note on the B Series. The four-wheel drive system on equipped models uses manual locking front hubs on older examples and automatic hubs on later ones. The manual hub system is simpler and more reliable over time. The automatic hub system is more convenient but develops occasional engagement issues with age, producing the sensation that four-wheel drive is not fully engaging when selected. Locking hubs cost under $50 each to replace when they wear. It is not a serious problem. It is just the kind of thing worth knowing before you test the four-wheel drive on a purchase inspection and wonder what is supposed to happen. The next car is for a completely different kind of driver. One who does not need a truck, does not need to haul anything, but does need to stop worrying about whether their car is going to start in the morning. Number 4. 2006 to 2010 Mazda 5. The Mazda 5 is the automotive equivalent of the person at work who nobody notices until they realize that person has been quietly doing everything correctly for 15 years without a single complaint. It is not exciting. It is also never broken. 6 seats, sliding rear doors, a footprint smaller than a Honda Accord, and the same 2.3-liter L3 engine that powered the Mazda 6 and Mazda 3 during their most reliable generation. That engine displaces 2.3 liters, produces 153 horsepower at 6,250 RPM, and turns a timing chain rather than a belt. The chain has no scheduled replacement. The L3-VE engine is legendary, but it has exactly one documented systemic failure mode that scares off casual buyers. And that is exactly what we want. The PCV valve is prone to failure. When it goes bad, this engine develops an oil consumption habit. We are talking about burning through quarts of oil between normal changes. If a previous owner ignored the dipstick, the engine ran dry and completely destroyed its own rod bearings. But here's the secret. A replacement PCV valve is incredibly cheap. The Mazda 5 is cheap because nobody in the used car market knows quite what to make of it. It is too small to satisfy minivan buyers. It is too practical to attract compact car buyers. It has sliding doors, which confuses people who are not sure if they want a minivan. This identity crisis is your financial opportunity. The 5-speed manual gearbox available on this generation is one of the underrated gifts in the used market. It is precise, smooth, and makes the 2.3 feel considerably more alive than the numbers suggest it should. The automatic is fine. The manual is quietly wonderful. Structurally, this car ages well. The interior materials hold up better than most competitors from this era. The sliding rear doors operate on a simple mechanical track that rarely develops problems and is straightforward to service when it does. Rust is the primary concern on northern examples, specifically the lower rear quarter panels and the sill sections. The cooling system on the Mazda 5 is conventional and straightforward. Are you writing this down? Because unlike what most buyers think, the 2.3-liter L3 engine does feature a variable valve timing system. You need to listen closely on a cold start for a specific rattle. If you hear it, that cam phaser is failing. One thing to check specifically on any Mazda 5 you're considering is the brake master cylinder can develop a slow internal leak on high mileage examples, producing a brake pedal that sinks slightly under sustained pressure at a stop. It is a documented wear item on this generation. The replacement is approximately $150 for the part, and it is a straightforward repair. If the seller does not mention it and you notice the pedal behavior on a test drive, use it as a negotiating point rather than a disqualifier. Whoever described it as a minivan for people who hate minivans had exactly the right idea. 6 seats in a car that parks like a hatchback is an equation that should be more popular than it is. The market's indifference is the reason you can buy one for $3,000 to $6,000 right now. The automatic transmission fitted to most Mazda 5 examples is the 5-speed F's 5A unit, a conventional torque converter automatic shared with the Mazda 3 and 6 of the same era. It requires Mazda-specified ATF-MV fluid, which is not interchangeable with other automatic transmission fluids without risking shift quality degradation over time. Change it on schedule with the correct spec and it runs indefinitely. Ignore it or use generic fluid and you create the shift complaints that occasionally appear in used car listings at prices that suggest something more serious is wrong. There is nothing more serious wrong. It is a fluid specification issue dressed up as a transmission problem. If you are carrying more than 4 people regularly and do not want to drive something the size of a small aircraft carrier, this is the answer. Buy it. Nobody cool wants it. That means you can afford it. The next car is older, simpler, and has been doing long-distance mileage without drama since before some of the buyers reading this were born. If you have owned one of these Mazdas and lived to tell the tale with triple-digit mileage, drop a comment below. We want to know the number on the odometer. Number 3, 1999 to 2003, Mazda Protege and Protege. 5. The Protege is what happens when an engineer decides a small car should just work instead of trying to impress anyone at a stoplight. 20 years on, examples are still racking up miles that make newer cars look embarrassed. The 2.0-liter FS DE4 cylinder engine produces 130 horsepower, which sounds modest until you remember that the car weighs approximately 1,100 kilograms. What happens when you combine that incredible power with a 2,400-pound curb weight and a dual overhead cam valve train design? You get a driving experience that is far more engaging than the spec sheet admits. One important housekeeping note, the FSD is a timing belt engine. The replacement interval is approximately 100,000 miles. Here is the best news for your wallet. This is a non-interference engine. That means a snap timing belt will leave you stranded on the highway, but it will not bend your valves or turn your engine into scrap metal. The Protege 5 hatchback variant deserves specific mention because it adds a load-lugging practicality that the sedan lacks while sharing every mechanical component. Finding a manual Protege 5 in good condition is the used car equivalent of discovering that the jacket in the charity shop fits perfectly. People who know, know. People who do not know walk past it looking for something with a newer badge. What makes this generation specifically relevant to the 300,000-mile conversation is the simplicity of the supporting systems. No variable valve timing in the base FSD, no direct injection, no dual-clutch transmission, a conventional 4-speed automatic or a 5-speed manual, each of which is well understood and inexpensive to service. The cooling system is conventional. The suspension uses McPherson struts with rear trailing arms that wear predictably and cheaply. Parts availability is extraordinary. The Protege sold in massive numbers globally and shared components across multiple Mazda and Ford platforms from the same era. Finding anything from a wheel bearing to an alternator is a 5-minute parts store visit, not an expedition. Independent mechanics who have been working on compact cars for more than 15 years know this engine without needing to look anything up. There is no learning curve, no special tooling requirement, and no system on the car that requires dealer diagnostic equipment to service correctly. This is increasingly rare in the current market, and it has real dollar value when something eventually needs attention. The Protege's suspension geometry ages without drama. Front McPherson struts, rear trailing arm with a torsion beam. The geometry is conventional enough that any mechanic who has worked on any compact car from this era can service it without a single question. The parts are cheap because the Protege sold in enormous volume globally, and because it shared components with multiple contemporary Mazda and Ford platforms. A full front brake refresh costs roughly the same as a restaurant meal. One genuinely underrated feature of the Protege 5 specifically is the hatchback roof extends far enough rearward to create a cargo area that swallows far more than the sedan's boot. Rear seats fold flat in the 5, creating a load area that fits a bicycle with the front wheel removed, a chest of drawers, or the kind of furniture that requires a borrowed van in most other compact car scenarios. The practicality of this generation is consistently underestimated by people who have never actually loaded one. Current pricing: $1,500 to $4,000 for serviceable examples. The Protege 5 commands a small premium because enthusiasts know what it is. Clean manual examples in rust-free southern condition are worth every dollar of that premium. The right buyer for this one, someone who needs reliable transportation, has a modest budget, and is happy to drive something that looks completely anonymous in a car park. The anonymity is the feature. It means nobody tries to break into it, nobody expects you to lend it to them, and it sits at the curb without attracting any attention until it crosses 200,000 miles and people start asking what the secret is. 2 cars left. The next one has been called the most reliable sports car ever made, and for once that claim is not a sales line, it is just accurate. Number 2, 1999 to 2005. Mazda MX-5 Miata NB generation. Before you scroll past this thinking a sports car does not belong on a list about practical reliability, stay with us for 30 seconds. Because the NB Miata is one of the most mechanically indestructible cars in the used market regardless of category, and its reputation for fun has caused the market to consistently misprice how reliable it actually is. The NB runs the 1.8-liter BP4W 4-cylinder, producing 133 horsepower in the base configuration, DOHC 16 valves, timing, belt at a 60,000-mile replacement interval. Let's clear up a massive internet myth right now. This is a non-interference engine, so a snapped belt will not destroy your internals. However, it will still leave you calling a tow truck. The reason the NB sits at number 2 on a reliability list rather than just a fun list is the mechanical philosophy behind it. Mazda built the Miata with a specific engineering brief. Keep it simple. No turbocharger. No all-wheel drive. No complicated electronics trying to manage throttle, torque, and traction simultaneously. A naturally aspirated engine, a manual gearbox that is widely considered one of the best-feeling manual boxes in the world, rear-wheel drive, and a body that weighs less than 1,000 kilograms. When there's almost nothing to go wrong, almost nothing goes wrong. The NB generation specifically improved on the NA's known weaknesses: better power steering feel, stronger gearbox synchros, a more resolved interior, and improved rust protection compared to the early cars. Still not perfect on rust, particularly on the sill sections and around the rear arches, which requires a torch and a careful look before purchase. Here's where the casual buyer walks away and the smart buyer leans in. A NB Miata with a fresh timing belt, clean service history, and a solid body currently prices between $4,000 and $7,000. For a car that is genuinely enjoyable every single time you drive it and will hit 300,000 miles if you service it properly. The fun is not a compromise you are making in exchange for reliability. The fun and the reliability are the same thing. Both come from the same design philosophy. The hardtop removable roof option on NB examples where fitted is worth looking for specifically. It seals better than the soft top, insulates sound better, and has no mechanical failure modes because it has no moving parts. A hardtop NB in good condition is a completely different ownership experience in winter than the same car with a worn soft top, and they rarely carry a significant price premium over soft top examples. Maintenance calendar for the NB, assuming you want it to hit 300,000 miles without drama. Timing belt and water pump together at 60,000 miles and every 60,000 miles thereafter. Differential fluid at 30,000 miles and at every oil change interval after that. Coolant flush every 3 years. Everything else is conventional and applies on a normal schedule. The differential fluid is the one that most owners skip and the one that produces the only common wear complaint on these cars. A whining rear end that announces itself at highway speed and costs more to fix than the entire fluid service would have cost over the car's life. Daily use in a Miata requires one concession. The boot holds precisely one large backpack. If that is a deal breaker, the next car on this list holds considerably more than a backpack and runs on the same underlying Mazda engineering philosophy. If it is not a deal breaker, you already know what you are doing. Drop a comment and tell us your mileage. We are not surprised by the number anymore. We just like seeing it. Subscribe right now if this list is making you look at used car lots differently. We cover the cars that the market undervalues and the ones that quietly run forever while everyone else is at the dealer. Number 1. 2003 to 2008. Mazda 6 with 2.3-liter engine. The Mazda 6 is the car that people who know Mazdas recommend when someone asks what they should buy with $3,000 and no appetite for drama. It is the car that mechanics recognize, service without hesitation, and occasionally buy for themselves when a clean one comes through the shop at the right price. The 2.3-liter L 3-VE 4-cylinder is the centerpiece of the argument. 160 horsepower at 6,000 revolutions per minute, 155 pound-feet of torque, DOHC, 16 valves, and a timing chain. Not a belt, a chain. There is no belt to replace, no interference engine catastrophe waiting at 110,000 miles if a previous owner forgot about the service manual. The chain runs for the life of the engine, full stop. The L3-VI has no documented systemic failure mode, not one, no head gasket tendency, no oil consumption pattern, no timing component that wears on a predictable schedule and destroys the engine when neglected. It runs until it runs out of oil, and it does not run out of oil unless the owner actively ignores the dipstick for a very long time. In the used car market, this is rarer than you might think. Think you know early 2000s transmissions? Think again. The 4-speed automatic paired to the 2003 to 2005 Base 6 is a conventional torque converter unit that Toyota could have built, while 2006 models finally upgraded to a 5-speed. The 6 handles in a way that the class genuinely did not expect. Mazda's suspension tuning gave it a composed, responsive character that made the Camry and Accord of the same era feel numb by comparison. It is not a sports car. It is a family car that respects the driver enough to give them something to feel. That character has aged without deteriorating, which is a more reliable indicator of build quality than any material specification. The first generation 6 did develop a specific issue on high mileage examples that every buyer should know. The intake manifold runner control system, which adjusts airflow for different RPM ranges, can develop sticking actuators at high mileage. The symptom is a check engine light with a P0608 code and a slight rough idle at low RPM. The fix is cleaning or replacing the actuator, which is a $75 part and a 30-minute job. It is the kind of known, documented, cheap-to-fix issue that actually makes a mechanic more comfortable recommending a vehicle, not less, because the failure mode is predictable and inexpensive. The coolant system on the first generation 6 requires one specific attention item that any informed buyer should build into the purchase decision. The coolant must be flushed on the correct interval with Mazda-specified long-life coolant. The L3V's aluminum construction means it is sensitive to coolant inhibitor depletion in a way that iron block engines are not. An owner who has been topping up with tap water and skipping coolant changes has not destroyed the engine. They have created the conditions for the cooling system to require expensive attention sooner than it should. Check the coolant color and smell on any example you are considering. Brown or oily coolant tells you the previous owner treated the cooling system as an afterthought. The seats deserve a mention because they are unexpectedly good. Mazda's ergonomics team on the first generation 6 produced a driver's seat with lateral support and lumbar positioning that holds up on long motorway drives without the kind of fatigue that cheaper cars from this era reliably produce. This is not accidental, it is part of the same engineering philosophy that gave the car its handling character. Mazda cared about what it felt like to be in the car for a long time, and that care is still detectable 20 years later. Rust on the first generation. 6 requires a specific look at the rear wheel arches and the underside of the rear floor pan on northern examples. On clean southern cars, it is essentially a non-issue. A car with documented service history and a rust-free body is, at current market prices, among the best value propositions in the entire used car market. The buying checklist for a first-generation 6 is short. Confirm the timing chain has not developed any noise at cold start. A brief rattle that disappears within 30 seconds of starting from cold is the first indicator of a chain tensioner beginning to wear. It is not a death sentence at early stages, but it is a negotiation point. Check the ATF color on automatic models. It should be bright red, dark brown. ATF means someone ran extended service intervals and the transmission is carrying contaminants that accelerate wear and start the engine cold before the seller has had a chance to warm it up. A cold start on a well-maintained 6 is quiet. A cold start on a neglected one tells you things the seller will not. Current pricing: $2,000 to $5,000 for clean examples with documented history. The hatchback Mazda 6 Sport from this generation, which is genuinely rare, commands a significant premium among buyers who know it exists. If you find a clean 6 Sport hatchback with a manual gearbox at a reasonable price, stop reading this and go get it. 5 Mazdas, all unloved, all underpriced, all capable of 300,000 miles on basic maintenance. The market ignores them for the same reason you should buy them. No social currency means nobody is competing with you for the price. Hey, thanks for watching. Want to see the 5 cheapest Toyotas that do the same thing? Click on the left. I'll catch you there.